I'm Ann McKay. Welcome to TrailBlazers Impact podcast with inspiring stories of women who created new paths for other women to follow. Our website is trailblazersimpact.com, and you can contact us at hello@trailblazersimpact.com.
I would like to introduce you to Dr. Tara Peters. Tara has been an educator for 25 years, including faculty and administrative roles. She currently serves as faculty in the DeVos Graduate School, and she is academic dean for Texas operations and has taught in several international programs. Because she's part of Northwood University, she works with the Peace Through Business program from the Institute for Economic Empowerment of Women, and she is an author. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you so much, Nan.
Let's start out with asking a question. How did your early life affect who you are today?
I would say that growing up as a child, my parents really instilled in me the importance of education. And so I always knew that education was very important. My parents really instilled in us expectations that we would do well in school, and that meant making A's because they knew that that was a representation of our best effort. And so I really grew up understanding that education would be important. I also really grew up understanding about expectation setting and really setting your sights high and your aspirations high and really going for the best and not settling. And so that's informed and really shaped me throughout my life and certainly shapes me now as an adult.
I know trailblazers have encountered hurdles and obstacles and discrimination in their lives. What were yours and how did you overcome them?
So I would say one of my first hurdles that I overcame as a teenager was that I became a teen mom during my junior year in high school. And I always told people that no one gets where they are alone. So I had a wonderful family, loving grandmother, I call her Nanny, who kept my son during the week once I graduated from high school so that I could go on to further my education at Texas Wesleyan. I'd earned a full academic scholarship. And so even after that disappointing my parents, disappointing myself, I still knew that God had his hand on me. I still knew that I had dreams and aspirations and that being a teen mom did not affect that. And I also knew that education would be really important in terms of me being able to break through the stereotypes, to break through the statistical challenges, which are real. When we look at teen moms and we look at the outcomes around that in terms of poverty and not finishing school and other factors that really impact the trajectory of your life potentially. And so that was really one of those life-changing events in my life. It really just solidified for me how important education is, how important family is, and to really know that it would be possible to still pursue my dreams, but I would have to stay committed to those things and really be vested in what I was trying to accomplish.
And I'll bet it was hard to keep your focus when you've also got a son, you've got a family around you, but you've got a lot on your plate.
I did. I had a lot on my plate, to say the least. But one of the things that I guess I'm always reminded of is that you and I have really, I think, inner strength that sometimes we don't quite know where it comes from, that just allows us to persevere and to press through. And I don't want to suggest by any means that there weren't some difficult days, because there were. There were times when I didn't know how I was going to do it. There were times when I wasn't even sure of myself, but I knew just somehow deep down on the inside that it was just incumbent upon me to persevere. And I also had this beautiful bouncing bundle of joy, my son, Janera. And I knew the kind of future that I wanted for him. I knew the kinds of opportunities that I wanted. So it really helped to strengthen me and to fortify me in those moments when I didn't know if I could do it, when I didn't know if I could make it. And I know that we all have those moments in time where we're not really quite sure. But again, I just believe there's something deep down on the inside of us. And I believe that it's a God strength that he gives us to be able to overcome when situations come up in our lives, and then allow us to have those breakthrough moments and to be able to have that encouragement that we need to take the next step.
You know, some women who had a teenage pregnancy have told me that they felt once they got maybe even into their 20s, 19 or 20, that they had missed out on having a social life, missed out on things girls took for granted. Tell me about that for you.
So what I'll say is that certainly there are sacrifices that you make because you no longer have the freedom that my girlfriends had who did not have children. And so certainly there were events that I had to make a choice. My parents required me to make a choice, that I had a responsibility. And so I had to ensure that I took care of Janera. But my parents also recognized that there was a part of my maturing that needed to have those experiences and be able to socialize and to go out with my girlfriends or to go to a party or to take a trip. And so they supported that, but they set parameters and they set boundaries in terms of things that I had to do in order to have access or to be able to do those things. The other thing I'll say too is being on the other side of it. Having my son when I was young, now that I am in my 40s and late 40s at this point, now I actually have the freedom to go and to do and to travel. Janera is 32 now, and I'll give you an example of that. We were in South Africa February of 2019, and so we had a chance to go back. Janera was there during law school. And so we had a chance to revisit and to connect with some old friends there and to have some new experiences. And so it can really cut both ways in terms of the experiences. So yes, there were some things that I missed out on. And while I don't recommend having a parent as a teenager, absolutely not, there is a backside to that story where if we do the things that we need to in between, that it doesn't have to be in vain. We can still have a set of experiences and travel and do the things that we enjoy. The timing is just going to be different. And in some respects, I think it's actually worked better because I'm older, I'm more mature, I have more insight. I can really glean from those experiences, things that I may have missed when I was younger or in my 20s. And so in retrospect, for me, at least, it has worked itself out. And so I think it's important to let people know that your path may not be like everyone else's path or that traditional trajectory that we might imagine for the life cycle that you and I might experience. But I think it's also important to remind people to keep our eyes on the prize, keep our eyes on the objective, in that the path may look different, but at the end, those things that we really wanted to accomplish, we still attain them. It's just that our path looks different.
That's very helpful. What's your passion in life and how have you lived it?
So I would say my passion really encompasses my family. I believe that family is really the cornerstone of our existence and who we are. And I've been blessed to grow up in a loving and really supportive family. We travel together, we spend time together, we celebrate birthdays and holidays together. So my family is really a part of my passion and my reason for being and living. But also I love to travel. That has been really a life's passion. It started when I was a youngster. So I would travel with my dad. We would go to Vail and to ski. I didn't have quite the appreciation for the sacrifice my dad was making until I had to buy lift tickets and then understood what those costs were. But so I've loved to travel. So traveling to ski, to visit family, and even now really traveling around the world. I've been blessed to travel to almost 30 countries. And so that passion has really been distilled in me, if you will. And one of the things that I think about in terms of pursuing our passion is really the joy that it brings us, the motivation brings us, and really, for me anyway, how it has shaped my perspective in terms of not only how I view and value my own life, but how I view and how I value others. And so I think that is really important. And so finding your passion, and again, having it to really inform who you are, I think is equally important as well.
Describe what you feel has been an important contribution you have made.
So one of the things I believe has been a really important contribution has been through my life as an educator. My professional career of the last 25 years or so has really been in education. As an educator, you really have this unique opportunity from my vantage point to shape the future. And so my career started in K-12. And so We had students who were coming to us, even though Ambassadors of Christ Christian Academy was a private school. We weren't typical in terms of having an affluent, necessarily family or student population, more middle class to lower middle class. So families sometimes would struggle to make the tuition payment each month. But we really had a chance to shape students. And so we had students who would come to us broken sometimes, students who would come to us with holes because of situations and circumstances that they had faced in life that had left them really empty and had left them really lost in trying to find their way. And to be able to really pour into those students and to let them know that they were here for a purpose and they had a calling. And so I really believe that my life as an educator, my career as an educator, has really allowed me to make a difference. And I get to even do that now as I teach in our graduate school. And I have students to talk to me. I just had this experience just 2 weeks ago. I had a student, April, who called me, and we had a chance to catch up. She's in a senior position with a major Fortune 500 firm, and she talked about how I had impacted her life and how I had meant a difference to her, and how I had been able to do that with my experiences and my walk and how I'd share with her. And so my heart was so full in that moment, being able to talk to April and to hear that. And so to know that as educators, we get to touch people's lives, and we don't always know it. Sometimes it's years later before we ever find out. But I still am heartened by knowing that what I do every day makes a difference in the lives of the students that I have the opportunity to teach.
That's fabulous. Have you ever taken a leap of faith?
Yes. So one of my leaps of faith was in the mid-2000s. So Northwood University, you shared earlier, I've taught internationally. And so we have an international program in Montreux, Switzerland. And so we have a partnership with the Hotel Institute of Montreux. Basically, students do their certificate program there for 3 years, and they come to Northwood in year 4 to earn their bachelor's degree. And so we have faculty who travel abroad. We travel to Switzerland to teach. And I had never traveled by myself. I'd always traveled with friends or family, et cetera. And so I had an opportunity. The dean of our international programs had invited me to teach a course there. And so I was going to have to travel to Switzerland all by myself. That was my first I'm just going to go for it. And I talked to a colleague, Evgeny, about the transit and the transfers and all of that, and got comfortable with it. And then I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to travel internationally by myself. I know people say, oh, you shouldn't do that. Or are you concerned about your safety or any of those kinds of things? And certainly I did have some concerns, but I try to be smart when we travel and when we plan and to do so accordingly. And so I did it. And I was so proud of myself for doing that. And it was so liberating to realize that, yes, I could travel abroad and I could do that comfortably and do it well and be safe and have really an enjoyable trip. And what it did for me is it really freed me up to no longer have the expectation that while I love to travel with family and certainly to travel with friends, that Tara, you can travel by yourself and you can see this great big world that's out there. And so sometimes I think we just have to stretch ourselves a little bit to take that leap of faith, to try something that isn't necessarily within our purview of normalcy or what we're comfortable with, or it's what is known to us, and then give ourselves permission to take that leap of faith and to also fail, because sometimes that leap of faith doesn't always work out. And so we have to be willing to acknowledge that we may have a setback or it may not go as we intended. But again, it's incumbent upon us to at least try and to see what might be the outcome of that effort.
Can you think back to what you would describe as one of the best moments of your life?
I would say one of the best moments of my life was watching my son, Janera, take the oath once he had passed the bar to become an officer of the court in the state of Texas. We went to Austin to watch Janera become officially a member of the bar in the state of Texas. And as a parent, I can't tell you just how proud I was, how beaming with joy I was in that moment for Janera, because I recognized the sacrifice that he had made to further his education. He had studied at the University of Miami and earned a degree in economics, and then went on to Howard Law School. And to watch your child achieve his dreams, to watch him move into something that I knew he was going to love to do and something I knew he would be really good at, and watch him be successful was really, as a parent, I mean, one of the most proud moments that I've had in my life. And so I would say that's really one of those just pinnacle moments as a parent that I'm just so grateful to have witnessed and to have been a part of.
What's the hardest thing you've ever had to do?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I've had to do a lot of hard things. I think probably the hardest thing that I've had to do, and I'll use it because of how young I was. I mentioned earlier that I was a teen mom. I think one of the hardest things that I had to do was to commit myself, continuing my education and not giving up on myself. And let me give you a little more context there. It's the fall of 1986. School is going to start. I'm about 6 months pregnant at that time. My parents, of course, know. And so we talked to my high school, and there was an option to go to my regular high school, which was South Grand Prairie, and to take my honors courses and AP classes and all of that, or to go to the teen mom high school. I talked to my parents and made a decision that I was not going to go to the teen parent high school because I wouldn't be able to take my honors and my AP courses. And I felt like it was incumbent upon me not to give up on myself and not to give up on my future. Yes, I was pregnant, but there was nothing wrong with my intellect. I was still smart. I was as bright as I had ever been. And I really needed to commit myself to what I ultimately wanted to do, which was to go on to college. And I knew these courses would be important. And so it's a hard thing to go back to school, to be 6 months pregnant and to wiggle into the desk and to know that people are looking at you and know that people are whispering and know that people are talking about you in ways that are probably not the most favorable. But again, to be able to weather that and to stay focused on what I was trying to accomplish. And so that was hard, very, very difficult. But I look back on it and I know that that was one of those important moments in my life. I didn't know it at the time. And many times we don't understand that these are those significant moments. I call them the big ones. But in retrospect, that really was. But it was a hard thing to do in that moment, being 15, soon to be 16 at that time.
You have worked with so many young people. Let's talk for a minute about what sometimes is an outcome of some of these events, like the one you went through, and that is teen suicide today.
You know, one of the things that I know from my experience is that our young people are dealing with so much. The landscape is different than it was during my time and even your time, Nan, where we did not have the social pressures around social media. We see situations where bullying has always been a part of the landscape in education, and we know that. But the bullying did not become a 24/7 by 365 event. And it certainly wasn't in a shared space where thousands or hundreds of people could actually see it or also participate in it as well. And our young people deal with circumstances that are really quite difficult, that put them in situations that cause them to lose hope. We know that one of the most debilitating parts of living is when we lose hope and there's no sense of a better tomorrow. That's a part of the struggle that our young people have. And I think that one of the things that's really important as an educator is to pay attention to our students, to notice when they seem to be behaving differently or they're making comments or acting out in ways that suggest that maybe not all is well. And then being able to at least create that opportunity for a conversation or dialogue, or to make a recommendation to them that here are some resources that you might want to consider availing yourself of to help you to get through this difficult time that you're in, because we don't want our young people to make a permanent decision for a situation that is really temporary. And too many of our young people don't know that. They don't understand that, because in that moment, there's really this sense of despair and hopelessness. And so I believe that certainly as educators, we have a role, But it really takes a village around our children and around our young adults to help them to navigate this landscape that they are a part of and maybe don't fully understand, and certainly don't fully understand how to navigate successfully.
As a mother, and maybe eventually as a grandmother, what are your greatest fears today?
I think one of my fears is, as an African American, one of my fears is my grandkids, my nieces, my nephews, growing up in a world that only sees their color and not their character, not the context or content of who they are. That concerns me. That's one of my fears. I have fears around how we will actually embrace diversity in this great country that we have. And will we continue to be that beacon of hope? Will we continue to be a country that welcomes the immigrant with open arms? Will we continue to be a country that looks at women and says that, yes, you too could be president of the United States, that will look at our young people and say that we want to work with you because we know that together we can solve these really big problems like climate change that we have. And so those are some of the fears, but fears are not to be the last word, because I believe that there is a way forward and that love and hope overcome fear. And so I remain optimistic in terms of how I think about our future, but those are definitely some fears and some concerns, certainly, that I have.
What motivates you? What keeps you going?
I would say one of the things that motivates me is really kind of something that I spoke to earlier, is that I believe that each of us is here with a purpose and with a calling. And I know that I'm fortunate to be in my calling. I'm fortunate to be in my purpose. I know that what I'm doing as a professional, as an educator, is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's funny because it takes me actually back to my childhood. As a kid, I used to play school, and I would have been teaching my dolls, and they would have been my students. And so I get to do that every single day. And so I'm really motivated by the chance that I have to do something I love to do, to do something that actually makes a difference. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm actually anticipating my day and looking forward to what it will hold, because I get to do something that I really, really love to do each day.
If there's a life lesson to pass along to younger people, what would it be?
The life lesson I would pass along to young people is to dream big. There's so much opportunity out there. And so I want you to dream big. I want you to believe that all things are possible. And my story as a 16-year-old teen mom to a PhD at 36 is an example of dreaming big. And I also think about the history that we made in this country in 2008 when we elected President Barack Obama. So I want our young people to dream big. I want them to be aspirational. I want them to think that really it's not just the sky, but it's the stars that are the limit, and to pursue it with vigor and with your whole heart. And don't let a setback cause you to be dissuaded from your big dream that you have, because I want you to know that it's possible that you could be the first of something amazing and something that you never thought was possible, but you dreamed it and then you went after it.
Tara, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. They were wonderful.
Thank you so much, Nan. It was my pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed listening to another story of the impact of Trailblazers. Visit our website at TrailBlazerSimpact.com and connect with us at hello@TrailBlazersImpact.com. And remember, you must learn a new way to think before you can master a new way to be.